right now. Oh, hey, there it is. Awesome. I feel the need to like jump up and down. Like, how's everybody doing? Wow, super enthusiastic. There we go. All right, feels good. I'm waiting. There's like things happening on this computer screen down here. All right, cool. Feels good. I'm going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, which is building and scaling data teams. We'll start with sort of what data teams are and where they even came from. We'll talk about how to build them. We'll talk about why they matter, all of that good stuff. So let's get right into it. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about this concept we have at Sisense called builders. So Sisense is a business intelligence platform, and we sell our business intelligence platform to many large customers, Air Canada, General Electric, NASDAQ, right? Companies like this. And we see that the most successful adopters of business intelligence, the ones who really are able to empower tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to make decisions with data, do a really good job of empowering this group of people that we call builders, and that includes your sort of business intelligence dashboard application creators, that includes your software engineers, and it also includes your data analysts and data scientists who do the sort of most advanced analysis, and empower those people to bring data and insights to their end users. So I'm going to talk about that concept. I'm going to talk a lot more about these data analysts and data scientists specifically. We call them collectively the data team, and we see the most advanced of our customers, Uber, Tinder, HBO, empowering this group of people specifically. I'm going to talk about how to build a team like this at your company, and I'm going to talk about how to make that team successful once you've built them. So as I said, and we covered this a little bit just now, but we talk about bringing power to this group of builders, and we talk about once you have brought power to this group of builders, how they are able to deliver insights to a large organization, and often even to their customers and their end users. And so this is sort of, if you're building a modern sort of full stack analytics platform or business intelligence platform for a large company to be deployed at a large company, this is a whole bunch of the breadth of the platform that needs to be developed. And as Matt mentioned, one end of the platform is sort of the most technically advanced, technically difficult, sophisticated part, which is something that I'm proud to say our company, Periscope Data, sort of brought to this merger. And then all the way on the other end, and sort of the middle and on, what do we call that? We'll call that your right of the slide, is all the sort of self-service and the insights and the actual decision-making that is brought by a business intelligence platform. So, data teams. I like to go back to what I think is probably the world's first business intelligence software. Anybody recognize this software? I can only sort of see you with the lights, but I can see you well enough, I think. Anybody? Yes, in the front. Oh, you recognize it? This in fact, is Lotus 123, which is not technically, I think, business intelligence software, but in around the same time, you had companies like MicroStrategy and Business Objects. And the way that they would basically work is you ask them, someone in IT maybe to get you some data, and then they take a few days, they go and fetch the data, and they give it back to you, and it looks like this. And this software actually did do graphs too, so I'm being a little bit unfair to it. But it would take a few days, and then you get the data back. And this, it looks clunky, and it takes a few days to get the data, but it's the 1980s, and we didn't have anything yet, so this is pretty good. And this is basically how business intelligence worked with companies like MicroStrategy and Business Objects and Cognos all the way through to the early 2000s. And the early 2000s had the first major disruption in this industry, which was Tableau. And Tableau took advantage of some new innovations like windowing operating systems and the internet to build this kind of drag and drop interface where the consumer of business intelligence, the end user, could get their own data. Right, could work on a data set that was not too big and not too complicated and sort of graph revenue over time or revenue over source or revenue over industry all by themselves without going back to IT every time. So that's really cool, and it works when the data is medium-sized because, again, this little drag and dropper is going to generate a pretty naive query, so data can't be too big. And the data model has to contain all the information that you might want to have. So it can't do complex questions where it's like, oh man, I actually want to plot product usage across my Internet of Things devices. It's like, well, that's not in your revenue data set, so there's nothing to be done. But to be clear, works really well for another couple decades, and other companies in this cohort are like Power BI, et cetera, right? It works well, self-service business intelligence. And roughly in the year 2014, we see another big shift in the industry, and this is not due so much to the internet or the operating system, it's due to the underlying collection of data in the cloud, right? We all start logging all this data, really every piece of data we ever touched, into like Amazon S3 or our other clouds that we might have. And the sort of best practice I'm sure you know at this point is, if I'm dealing with a row of data, like log it and shove it in S3. Why not? Never throw it away. Why would I throw it away? We're gonna keep it, right? And so all of a sudden we have like trillions of data records and sort of nothing to do with them, right? And then another thing happens, which is the best companies start doing something with it, right? So you've got your companies, your innovators, your Netflixes of the industry, your Tinders of the industry, right? Going, okay, well I'm gonna do something really different and innovative and differentiated with this data. To build a better platform. And those companies start winning, and they become the disruptors. So this is nothing new, right? The disruptors of our age are doing so with data. They're doing so because they can create better product experiences or better businesses because they are more sophisticated users of data. All makes sense. The problem is this work needs to be like totally custom, right? You can't use Tableau to drag and drop a little bit of data in order to get totally sophisticated insights like what's the product usage across all my Internet of Things, devices, or how do I reroute my cars around the city to make the most optimal use of the resources that I have? Those have been totally custom work. And so the solution is this team that we call the data team. And so what you see here is the traditional BI team, right? And that's the folks who are setting up the data models to do drag and drop or answering the kinds of questions that you might have had for IT when you had MicroStrategy or Cognos. You can see here some of the roles on that team. But the basic idea is, you have a traditional BI team and a traditional BI stack, and you're not really up for the kind of sophisticated custom question answering, sophisticated data analysis that is now required. And so this gentleman, his name is Chris, and he actually manages the data team at Sisense in San Francisco. This is the team that you're starting to build now to answer these custom questions. And they can take on big, complex data sets, and they can answer really hard questions on it. And so the way that this works is you call Chris and you say, hey, Chris, I want to, we've launched this new platform, and I want to understand which cohort of users in particular is using this new platform and whether they're a profitable group of users. And Chris goes and dives deep into the data in a totally custom ad hoc way and provides a totally custom answer. And so now you have this new team, and it's a totally you can see it's a much less structured team and a team of highly talented individuals who can do a variety of tasks in order to get this kind of thing done. And so this is the team that you start to build now in the enterprise in order to sort of either be a disruptor or protect yourself from disruption. As you start to build this team, you'll see that the team starts to mature along what we call a maturity curve, right? And so you have the basic business reporting and business intelligence at one end of it. That's the stuff that you can do with a traditional business intelligence team and a traditional business intelligence platform. And as you move along this curve, you start to hire a data team that can do more what I was talking about, ad hoc analysis and insights, which is the sort of call Chris, ask Chris to get the answer for you, figure it out. And then you start to move towards hybridizing this data team, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, which is you've got your central data team that does your central source of truth and answers centralized questions, but then you start to farm out individual members of the data team to different organizations around the company, to different teams around the company, so that they can all have that experience that they want to have, so that you can say, okay, marketing team has someone that they can ask questions to, sales team has someone that they can ask questions to, and now every team at your company becomes empowered to ask some of the most advanced questions. And then finally, the most advanced data teams that we work with start to bring what we call augmented analytics or machine learning algorithms on top of the analytics so that you can do true prediction and true modeling of not just what happened in the past, not just answer a question about the past, but what will happen in the future. And so this is just I won't read all of these things, but a number of things that data teams can do for you once you have them set up. And it's everything from the source of truth, which is really important, obviously, to product improvements, right? So that you can start to say, okay, what would make my product stickier or what would keep my users around longer? Better decisions, and that's both just simply data-driven decisions, but also being thoughtful about removing bias from the decision-making at your company. And then the nirvana is actually transforming the culture, right? A really cool thing happens where once you get used to making decisions in this way, once you get used to bringing in the data team and asking the data team to answer these questions as you have them, the company's culture starts to transform and become much more data-driven. And that's a really beautiful thing to watch, and we're really impressed by that. And again, some quantitative, this is based on some research that we've done. These are obviously high-level numbers, but you can see a bunch of the benefits of your business. I don't think I probably have to convince this crowd that it's better to have a data-driven business. But in any event, there are a number of sort of business value props or business improvements that get made when you have a team like this. All right, so that's all cool. We believe you, Harry. We want to have a data team, but like, how do we do it? So first, oh, cool. First, I want to talk about the different roles on the team. So the data engineer is going to be the person that brings in the data from all of the different places that it might be. So we talked about logging all the data to a data lake like S3 or something like that. You're also going to have sort of business workflow software like, say, Salesforce is going to have a bunch of data. You're going to have third-party systems like AdWords, for example, or other marketing channels that you might have that you're going to be bringing data in. And you're going to want totally custom pipelines from those sources into your single source of truth. The data engineer lives and breathes that. They're the most sort of similar to a software engineer that you'll have on this team. You will have your data analyst, and this is a term that gets used a lot in a lot of different contexts. My go-to here is somebody that writes SQL or other sort of data analysis languages. You sometimes see like MATLAB or Stata, especially in academic contexts. But this person will do historical analysis or other kinds of analysis on the data in order to figure out what's happening. This is the person that's interacting and interfacing with your line of business person, right? Your person, your sales leader, your marketing leader, your product leader, when they want to ask those questions of the data. You will have your data scientist. This is your person that sits centrally and answers the hardest questions, the business-wide questions, and predicts the future, right? And they're the ones who are using more advanced languages like an R or a Python or other things like that in order to really understand what's going to happen in the future or answer the hardest questions that you may have. Typically, this team is organized centrally, interfaces directly with the executive team in order to understand what may be happening at the business or to answer the most important questions at the business. And then we're going to organize all of these people under our chief data officer. You are going to need a senior head of data at the company that can own how are decisions made at this company, right? What is the culture of data at this company, and how are we using data ethically at this company? So this is a senior executive. They come from one of these backgrounds. The team reports up to them, and they are responsible for prioritizing the work, hiring the team, and then all that cultural stuff around data at the company. So we've got this team. All makes sense so far. How can we make this data team successful? Here are a bunch of things. I want to go through them individually because I think they're very important. Starts at the top. This is really, really, really critical. If you are going to have a data-driven company, if you are going to build a good data team, it starts with the commitment from the CEO and the commitment from the founders, right? If you are not committed to moving your company from making decisions with gut, making decisions based on past experience, to a model where you're making decisions based on data, then we're going to see that this doesn't end up working, right? So it starts more with the founder and the CEO and the executive team making a company-wide commitment to this. The next thing I would say is it's important to show quick wins. I mean, this is true anytime you're making a business transition. You have a beautiful long-term strategy. You want to execute on the beautiful long-term strategy. We have seen time and again, somebody makes this commitment, hires up this team. For 6 months, we haven't really seen any results, and the organization sort of loses faith in the process. So you want to prioritize demonstrating ROI quickly, and you want to give the data team that mandate. When you start by hiring that CDO, you want to then say, okay, I want to see some quick wins in the first 90 days and the first 180 days so that we can build momentum in the organization. You need to find those partners across the organization that are going to work with the data team. It's not enough to build that data team, say, okay, you data analysts, you're organized in a hybrid fashion, go find your partners. Bring the partners to the data team. Say, often in sales or marketing, it'll be an ops person, right? You'll have your sales ops or your marketing ops person that will build the bridge to the data team and start to leverage those insights. Once you get that trust, then the leaders of those teams will start making time and prioritizing working with the data teams. But it's not going to happen by magic, and you need to proactively manage the partnership between the data team and their customer organizations. You want to find those blockers proactively. There's always going to be one organization in your company that thinks that they already got it all figured out and doesn't need this. You want to find those folks, and you want to at least understand where they are. Sometimes you leave them in place. You have a really rockin' sales organization, they're killing it, they don't really want to work with data, and you don't want to fuck with it. Totally makes sense. Not for the long term, maybe not forever, but for right now, totally makes sense. But you want to understand where it is and proactively manage to it. Maybe help your data team manage that transition. Where this can sometimes go awry is where you as the leader don't know what the blocker is, and it kind of festers. Your data team needs to come with an investment in tooling. I would not hire 6 high-powered data scientists and not get them great tooling, right? This, I think, is the moment in the talk where I plug our tooling. Sisense is really great. You should buy it. It's especially amazing for advanced data teams. That being said, whatever it is that you do buy, if it's going to be 5 data scientists and great tooling instead of 6 data scientists, that is the answer, because you're going to have a frustrated data team, and then you will have no data team once again if you don't give them the tools they need to do their job. And then finally, and this is the longest term part of this, or the longest time horizon part of this, you're going to need a commitment to building this company-wide culture with your data team. Where this really gets successful is where your team transforms the culture at your company, as I said, and that works with an ongoing commitment that you build to embracing that new culture, to helping the team build that new culture, and that's something that you need to understand up front and build for it up front. And then finally, just a quick 3-step process as you're building out the team. So first, you start with those generalist data analysts. So you're going to have some data already. Start with the first few data analysts. And if you're a startup and you're building up as you go, if you have 5, 10 people, maybe 1 or 2 data analysts makes complete sense, and that's your whole data team. This is actually, if you're in that situation, this is a really nice place to be, because it's easier to build that culture from the start than it is to transform a culture, which is mostly what I've been talking about. But in any event, start with 1 or 2 or 3 generalist data analysts who will work with the data that you have and start bringing those quick wins for you. Once you start to grow, then you will start to specialize those roles as we talked about. So then you can start to specialize out data scientists who work primarily on centralized problems and do primarily work that is really advanced. You'll add data engineers, they'll take over the pipeline that the data analysts built and start to make it much more sophisticated and much more scalable. And you'll add that head of data, that chief data officer. Finally, as you're ready to really scale, that's where you think about the hybrid organization. So we like to see data teams that report in centrally, but where data analysts are specifically assigned out to work on an honorary basis or on a dotted line basis with different orgs around the company. So you'll have, this is the data analyst who specializes in sales. They go to the weekly sales meeting, et cetera. Same with marketing, same with product. We've touched on this a couple times. So that's something you can start to do as you scale out. So that's sort of how you prioritize those data team hires at your company. So that's it. That's building a data team. That's why to build a data team. That's how to build a data team. And that's how to sequence it. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time.